it's the full hour now, so we will start our webinar. I'm sure people are all still going to be joining, but just being conscious of everyone's time, I'd like to kick this off. So welcome. My name is Hilary Rand, and this is the first inaugural Fireside chat by Tarkett. I will be your moderator today. I am a hospitality strategist, writer, speaker, and presenter. I host and moderate a lot of industry events around the world, and I also act as the consulting editor for Supper magazine that focuses on new hotel food and beverage outlets, and I also work on various strategic hospitality projects. And a little bit more about Tarkett as well, as they have very kindly sponsored this event. With a history of 140 years, Tarkett is a worldwide leader in innovative flooring and sports surface solutions. Offering a wide range of products, the group serves customers in over 100 countries across the globe, selling 1.3 million square meters of flooring every day for hospitals, schools, housing, hotels, offices, stores, and sports fields. And committed to changing the game with circular economy and to reducing its carbon footprint, the group has implemented an eco-innovation strategy based on the cradle-to-cradle principles that are fully aligned with the Tarkett human conscious design approach. So sustainability is really at the core of Tarkett's efforts, and they see a need for more discussion and idea sharing on this topic. And hence, we are all together in this webinar. So we have quite a powerful topic today to tackle, role of sustainability and corporate social responsibility in the next normal. It's quite a mouthful, but you know we have to get that message through. So I have 4 wonderful panelists with me here today, and they know a lot more about themselves and the companies that they represent. So I'm going to have each of them represent themselves and tell us a little bit about the company and their role within it. So Anne-Marie, let's start with you.
Great, thank you so much for that lovely introduction. My name's Anne-Marie Aguilar. I'm the Senior Vice President for the International Wellbuilding Institute. I'm based in London, and we are the guardians of the Wellbuilding Standard, which is the first building rating system that's focused on occupant health. And I've been in this role for a little over 4.5 years. My previous career was with Arup, leading their sustainability across the EMEA region, and my background is in architecture. So really keen to discuss the topics of health and well-being as we move into corporate social responsibility.
Thanks, Anne-Marie. Eve, you're next.
Hi, so I'm Eve Bourdino. I'm project manager in interior design, working for Accor for the past 10 years now. I'm also part of the Carbon Task Force, who is defining the carbon strategy for Accor in the next few years, and I'm specialized in sustainable interior design.
Great, thank you. Diana.
Thank you, Hilary, for this beautiful introduction. So hello, everyone. My name is Diana Suan. I am a member of the customer engagement team in the Paris office at EcoVadis. I'm really honored to participate at this Fireside, especially because this is a special and a topic that I'm passionate about. So sustainability has been a topic of my greatest interest since I was doing my master's degree. So it was when I discovered and I understood that this topic is it has an important role in the business world. And I'm also really happy that I joined, and I'm really proud that I joined such an international company as EcoVadis that has its core mission to make sustainability real. My role as customer onboarding expert is to help rated companies to go through the EcoVadis assessment process and to accompany them into their journey towards continuous improvement of their sustainability performance.
Thank you, Diana. Thank you. And last but not least, Jörg.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jörg Meyer. I'm located at Kühne Nagel headquarters in lovely Switzerland, Schindellegi, that's up the Lake of Zurich. The mountains doesn't look like the ones behind me, but it is also white. It is snowing right now. Kühne Nagel is a global logistics and transportation company representing 78,000 employees across 110 countries. And we have started about 2 years ago, September 2019, to strongly focus on net zero carbon. We started on sustainability activities since about 2010. In 2019, we made the claim that by 2030, we want to be completely CO2 neutral in the scope 1, 2, and 3. And that, of course, is a big corporate social responsibility we have engaged now.
Thank you, Jürgen, and we'll touch on everything that you all have brought up in the short intros. For the audience, I would really encourage you to use the Q&A possibility here on Zoom to ask any questions at any point, and I will do my best to try to weave those into our conversation. And just before we get into tackling the topics, last night I came across a posting on LinkedIn, and I'm going to read that short passage. It's by a very well-known and renowned journalist who covers the space of sustainable travel and sustainability in general. So it really captured my eye, and I thought it was a good opening for what we're talking about today. Show us you're sustainable, don't just tell us. I am besieged with press releases from brands or influencers declaring themselves super champions of sustainability. The key element missing from these I love the planet me messages is evidence. So this was written by Juliet Kinsman. She's the founder of Buteco and writer for Condé Nast Traveler and author of the Green Edit Travel Easy Tips for the Eco-Friendly Traveler. So I think the message there is quite clear, is we need evidence. You know, everyone can say that we're doing certain things, but show me what is it that you're actually doing. So I would like to structure this conversation looking at the different facets, different stakeholders, the employees, the customers, the suppliers, the management, and I'd like to start with the employees piece. So we've seen an enhanced focus on the mental and the physical health, and I would like to get ideas from you of how this manifests in the companies that you represent or the service that your company provides. And Anne-Marie, I'd actually like to start with you, because I think the well-building and what it aims to do is such a crucial topic now.
No, it is absolutely. And as we've started to come out of, hopefully, this pandemic, I think there has been a greater focus on both mental health and physical health. And what was really interesting about the Wellbuilding standard when it first launched in 2014 is that it really was the first standard that was really going to be talking to buildings, both construction and renovation, from the perspective of the human occupant. And you know, when you look and you understand how the human body was developed, it was never designed in such a way to be sitting inside a building with artificial light, probably little fresh air coming from outside. So we started to really understand what are the medical components that we need to be focused on. And two of the concepts that I think talk directly to what you're talking about is both the mind concept and movement. And if we just look at mental health, and we were really focused on, you know, how can we promote mental health both through policy and program, but what are the design strategies that can address diverse factors that influence both cognitive and emotional well-being? So if you think about it, this concept seeks to really improve those two areas. So we look at creativity, cognitive performance, emotional health, and it's how do we actually focus those in the places that we live, that we work, that we study, that we spend time in. So we really came up with some great strategies that include things like nature and biophilic environments. So what are the things that as human beings we have a natural connection to? And that tends to contain, you know, our attraction to natural materials and being able to see nature and be a part of nature, and you know, flowers and green environments. So we've started working with architects and designers to really understand how do we design restorative spaces and restorative opportunities, and convince people that access to nature, taking a break, and going outside, having a view to the outside are really important. And I'm sure with Eve's contribution about the hotel industry, they've been looking at that aspect for a long time, human well-being. And I think we're now starting to understand that this is actually moving into the corporate world. The other aspect that I would definitely touch upon is movement, in being that we've all had this incredible opportunity to be home for a year. And I think the health aspects of having the time to work out, the time to go for a run, the time to do a yoga class has been much more prevalent than it ever was. And part of our standard in the movement category is to deploy areas where people can actually have a physical experience without just assuming HR should give someone a gym membership and you can find your own time to do that. We need to be integrating places and times where people can exercise when it's convenient for them and when it's important for them. So that's the sort of commonality that we're seeing when we look at both mental health promotion and physical health. It's how do we integrate that into the built environment and not just leave it as an add-on when someone's got time after their busy day.
Great, and I want to follow up on two aspects, the design aspect and the corporate world aspect. So on the design front, question for you. Obviously, we've seen in hotel design moving to the lifestyle brands. Everyone, the focus has been home away from home, feel like home, which has been for the customers coming. But now that work life is changing and people will be working more and more in hotel spaces, how is that changing what you guys are doing at Accor, and what elements that maybe that already Anne-Marie touched upon that you have been using, are using more, or focusing more on?
Yeah, I think in the design aspect, we definitely go towards something more holistic as an experience. You don't only go to the hotel and it's only the hotel where you're going to spend the night. It's going to be the place where you work, the place where you go on holidays with your kids. It's going to be the place where you relax, where you meet your friends, and where you can work also with someone else, someone not from your company, but someone that lives next to yours, for example, where you can mix. I think the borders, the frontiers between co-working space, co-living space, the hotel industry and home will be a bit thinner in the next years, definitely. And yes, so we do integrate all this mental health and health and well-being into, and not only in the lifestyle brands, to be fair. It's really a tendency, a trend that we can see in all brands, how we integrate what the client wants, the guest wants, into our space, no matter where we are, if we are Ibis or Pullman or in Mama Shelter, it doesn't matter. It's a trend, it's coming.
Yeah, and I think we see that a lot more in the more traditional workspaces and workplaces as well. And here's a question to you, Jörg, actually, because if I'm not correct, you can correct me, but I think Kühne Nagel employs 80,000 people around the world, so it's a good concept to understand what has happened in the last year and what does that mean for your employees, because we've alluded to it before that work-life balance has changed. Whether working from home is the answer, the jury's still out on that. Would like to get some of the sense from you of what's been going through the mind of your workforce and the sort of implication of workplace digitalization, carbon footprint versus the corporate travel. So it would be great to get those ideas.
Yeah, thank you, Hilary. One of the aspects, of course, is the stabilization from the current pandemic impacts. As we have seen before, is home office really a privilege, and not really when you're in a 2-floor apartment living and maybe you have kids or pets or whatsoever. It can quite become stressful. Or there are also some individuals that become workaholic, maybe also including myself. You start early morning, you try to solve it, then it's raining, you stay inside and you forget to get on a stroll and move your body. There are symptoms like this and we have to be very careful. On the other side, I must say we have started about 2 years ago with an internal care program about how we can improve our work-life balance. How can we improve the design eventually of our offices, etc. And having more than 1,300 office sites across the globe, you can imagine this is quite. You have a lot of countries. You have a lot of different spaces. We have, of course, a lot of warehouses where you can't really improve a lot. You can't put trees into the warehouse because they will not survive. But one of the big topic was getting or having a discussion with the staff and let them come forward with kind of a catalog of wish list, how they would like to see, how they would like to improve. And sometimes it is not always about the big pocket of money, what they want. There are little things, kind of a coffee machine closer to the warehouse, that they don't have to walk into the canteen with dirty shoes or things like that. Simple things, how to make work, the daily work easier to go there, or in the office where we had topics, we would like to have more plants in there. We had pretty good topic in our Australian, one of our Australian office, which we rebuilt, made new 2-3 years ago, where they put a lot of plants in there. Basically, you walk into a jungle office, so to say. The impact was they had reduced the air temperature by 2 degrees, and they were able to reduce the energy by about 10 or 15%. Simply, the rest is being done by the plants and the plants and little trees they had in the big office spaces prepared, and it was such an enormous success, and it had an impact also to others. Then, of course, you have the I think Anne-Marie mentioned the topic of the health. How can we improve the health? We have in all our new offices, we have, how to call these, tables that go up and down, removable tables you can stand. We have, I don't want to call it Google Office, we are not that type of industry, but you have kind of corners where you can hide 2, 4, 6 people. You can stand around, you can have sessions, you have a lot more easygoing speeches or discussions than in the stiff old type of chair and table in a room and sit there, and within 1 hour we have to produce some doable results. These are little items. And then what we also have found out is where do you need additional gimmicks? And we have seen we are all human beings. We would like to join, have not a party, but being a party to go jointly for commuting. So we reduced, instead of everyone drives his own car, we tried to have consolidated commutes. In Europe, partly they were even going by bike. They kind of, the shift workers now, they are not going all by their own. There are 2 or 3 together. Unfortunately, COVID.
It's a carpooling exercise.
Carpooling exercise, yeah, particularly in the US, yeah. That was started in 2019, but unfortunately then COVID came and we had to stop that because that created a risk, as we all know. But these kind of elements now we are again preparing, let's say, for the second half when it gets better, and we also see that people want to go into that level again. They want to get together, they want to socialize to the extent possible.
Thank you, Jörg. And you already, I like the idea and the example that you gave from that office. And I think it paints a really good example of what both Anne-Marie and Yves were saying about the biophilic elements. And what I like that you actually mentioned numbers and things that are measurable, because I think the measurement is the key, right? Because that's something that you can put forward. And question to you, Diana, actually on this, as EcoVadis being sort of about sustainability ratings, and ratings is a way to communicate what you're doing and how well you're doing it. So in terms of when we look at the employees, what is something companies can do to help those ratings communicate a story that they care and that they're willing to take this extra step for the betterment of the health?
Yes, it is a great question. So thank you for that. Indeed, EcoVadis is most trusted provider of sustainability ratings, just for in case that not all the participants know what we do at EcoVadis. And we provide companies with a sustainability scorecard in terms of their performance. So we are going to look at the different aspects in the company's sustainable performance. So there are 4 topics in the assessment. We are going to assess the company's social and human rights aspect, environmental one, ethical one, and sustainable procurement. So yes, in terms of labor and human rights, because all the companies can relate to this topic. So any type of company would be concerned in terms of work conditions, in terms of security of the employees, in terms of the trainings, and many other aspects that the participants, the panelists have mentioned before. So yeah, definitely we're going to ask companies to, I mean, not ask, but go and look what evidence they can provide in terms of these topics. And of course, we are going to analyze it, and we are going to put it in a scorecard, and also we'll highlight what are the strengths of the company in terms of these 4 topics and what are the improvement areas. So when it comes into the improvement areas, we are going to give them guidelines on how to do and how to implement, for example, health and safety policy if a company hasn't yet implemented one in the companies. So yeah, definitely we're going to look at different aspects, and all these aspects on all these pillars make the sustainability to become real into a company.
Great, and we'll come back to you, Diana, more on the supplier side in a bit, but I thought it was important to mention what specifically focuses on the social and employee aspects. So thank you for pointing those out. And now looking more on from employees to the customers and supplier space. So we've all seen that there's a complete change in needs, and that's usually a change in something is what fuels and drives innovation. So question, Jörg, for you in this, because Kühne and Nagel has done a lot in this front, and if you can talk through some of those changing needs that have then made you to innovate as a company, that would be great.
Well, we said we had set a very ambitious target to say we go not to the 2050 targets as the COP21 said, basically to become carbon neutral. We set the target for 2030. Now, this is not a marketing gag. This is the reality. We have to prove every time, like what we just said, we have to evidence it. Of course, we have, because we are a stock exchange company. So. Just bragging is one thing, but evidencing is the other. We have investors that are interested in what we are doing, and we also have to come forward with real numbers. We have it's the 5th year now. We're just preparing the sustainability report where all these numbers also can be found. Will we reach 2030? I have been asked lately by an investor. I said it's very good. We will know. I don't know it now. We will know by 2030. And I told them, listen, in the 60s, there was a president who said, we choose to go to the moon. That was 1962. For the elderly among us, they may not respectively remember, but maybe they heard about that story. And within the decade, they went on to the moon, or at least they went very close to the moon. Don't want to go in any more details here, but if you said a tough ambition, yes, you can reach them. Now, the end discussion with the investor said, okay, if we reach 70-80% by 2030, not 100%, what would you say? And his answer was, wow, that would have been an achievement. I said, exactly, this is what we want to go for. Now, the interesting part is when discussing the topic, and we also get challenged by our customers, of course, how can we improve, how do we monitor, how do we speed up, how do you make our supply chain green or greener? We have seen in a global analysis that more and more companies also shifted away from 2050, because I don't know what we will be doing at 2050 or where we are sitting in which function, and I hopefully not at my desk at that time, but definitely we have to become more accountable and responsible in what we are doing, and we shall take and pull all the same rope, because it is not the company itself that it is a societal approach. It is me and my customer, it is me and my supplier, it is me and my friend and my colleague. And it starts in very little activities. Don't bring plastic to the canteen. Don't buy plastic in the teller machine. Make sure bring glasses. We have brought, everyone has his own cup and everyone has his own water bottle. And we clean it. It will be done by the facility management team, but we get our bottle of water again the next day. We can fresh it up, etc. All these little things, and it is important that we pull that. And since we are a big company, we always say we have a factor 10. We influence easily close to 1 million people. That has a trigger impact. And if you all tell them, don't commute one by one, get carpooling, car sharing modes, go by bike or go public, somehow get out for a stroll during lunchtime, bring your mindset into a nice order, yes, then you can go to the moon, definitely.
Well, I like your big thinking, because I think that's the only way we can move the discussion forward in a way that is also beneficial. And I think the one thing you mentioned, what I want to pick up on is intent. That the intent, I think, is there for a lot of us, whether it's the customer, it's the supplier. But I think we then have to focus on educating, because there's a wish to do certain things, but we just don't have the tools and the knowledge. So my next question is actually on that front, is to you, Yves, because what you obviously deal with different stakeholders when you design rooms for the different brands under the Accor umbrella, and when we spoke before, there's designers who you work with who definitely want to be on this trajectory, but don't necessarily have the tools or the understanding how to do it. So if you can talk about that a little bit.
Yes, of course. So I'm part of the design department. We're based in Paris, but actually we support our design and technical teams everywhere in the world, who then support our owners, because we don't own hotel at Accor. So they support owners into renovating and building their hotels. We work, therefore, with a lot of designers all over the world, and all of them say that they know how to do green building, they know how to eco-design, but it's not as simple. And so we decided internally to create a tool to help them measure the environmental and circular footprint of a furniture or a lamp, for example. It's a very easy Excel tool where you can rate, where the supplier can actually rate his furniture, his lamp, or his item. And we just figured that this tool has actually two objectives. One is really to help our team taking a decision during the procurement process, to be able to have the data when sourcing a product, and to choose wisely, to take that into account at least. The other objective, a bit more indirect, is really to educate our suppliers and our designer to the criteria that we expect as Accor, and to give them the opportunity to have this intention, as you were mentioning, Jörg. We say that it actually counts for us. It's important. So they have to integrate this into their strategy, into the conception, into all this. They have to take it into account.
Great, and I think Anne-Marie, I'm sure you have a lot to add on this, because I think a lot of what the Wellbuilding Institute stands for is educating all the different stakeholders of what this can do, what it's supposed to do, and how to do it. So would like to get your thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, I think what's really become more important now than ever is the idea of transparency. And one of the original hallmarks of the Wellbuilding standard is that you cannot actually get a well building unless you pass really stringent on-site performance testing. And when you think about that, especially now in today's world, it's absolutely critical. So one of the 4 key areas that we would be testing once a building is ready to achieve WELL certification is air quality, water quality, the benefit of light, and acoustics. And if we fast forward to some of the concerns we have about going back into buildings today, you can see why things like air and water would be absolutely critical. We've got buildings that have spent between 3 and 9 months unoccupied. So we need to be able to make sure that when people reoccupy buildings today, that their ventilation systems are clean, their air filtration units are actually ready and have been really brought up to the best quality, that they can increase ventilation, because we know that the virus can translate and mutate through the air. So we really want to increase circulation. So I think as much as we're out now talking about educating people, what we're seeing as more important than ever before is this validation. Customers are really looking for real transparency to say, a third-party verification might have been a really nice thing to have 2 years ago, and maybe spending a little extra money to make sure that you had that third-party review was a nice to have, and maybe we would save that for our HQ building. But now the message that we're getting back from the market is that everyone deserves and needs to be in a well-certified space. And the fact that you guys can provide some really rigorous testing around these key components before a building is occupied is really absolutely critical for us now. And it's a way that I think Well has also provided a great opportunity to communicate back to the potential stakeholder, the occupant of the building, what it is that we do, because obviously well-being and health can be quite challenging to communicate. And the one great thing about the word well and about going through third-party verification is that you actually address so many key components. And like I said, today, air and water are going to be absolutely critical to get right when people come back into these buildings.
Thank you, Anne-Marie. I think great points there to touch upon, but I love the idea of transparency, because I think that also plays to the fact of let's be honest about what we're doing and how we're doing it, but also having that information available and how to best use it. And next question is for you, Diana. When we talked about, especially you onboarding role, you come across a lot of different companies, from extra small to large corporations, and there's always this sort of cost benefit scenario of wanting to be a certain way, but not understanding the sort of investment going into it and what the long-term profitability would be and how that would add. So would like to get your view on that, and if you could talk to us a little bit what you've seen in your work.
Yes, great, thank you. Yes, definitely. I've seen a different situation depending on the company's size. So I've been onboarding companies from extra small, meaning that they have 1 or 2 employees, until more than 1,000 employees. And definitely there is a big difference into how to approach sustainability. Is it useful, or do I know what it is? Is it useful for me? Is it beneficial only for now, or is it going to benefit me in long term? So there is a huge difference in terms of extra small and small companies. They would see it only as something that it needs to be compliant, that they need to be compliant of, and that is generating extra cost for them. And sometimes they would struggle and they will be reluctant to a sustainability assessment because they do not see the value need in long term. Whereas the large companies, definitely they are more aware of what sustainability, the importance of sustainability, and how do you rate it, and the benefits in long terms as well, because they have also a larger operations, larger, they touch as well a different aspect, different stakeholders, and their impact is greater than smaller companies. And definitely there is way much more interest, more openness into doing this sustainability assessment. And definitely they use it in order to promote their sustainability to their different stakeholders as communication tools for RFPs, requests for proposals, and in other ways communicating, and of course they see way much more benefit out of it. Now, EcoVadis, it's a great tool in order to assess the company's sustainability. Why? Because we actually provide a tailor-made questionnaire. What does it mean, tailor-made? So we are going to get the information, the basic information of a company, and we're going to make this questionnaire that is going to be adapted to the size of the company, to the industry they are doing the activity, and to the location as well. So every EcoVadis questionnaire is accessible, and assessment is accessible to any type of companies, from a small one to extra large one. Now it is gonna the content and the length of the questionnaire is gonna depend, of course, from the size and the industry, and of course we are going to activate different criteria of CSR or sustainability into the questionnaire. So a smaller company, they're going to have definitely smaller, shorter content and shorter questionnaire, and whereas the larger company, they are going to have a way much more sophisticated, in-depth insights and questions about their CSR management. Also, we redesigned our cost system, so we made the cost to be available for any type of any type of industry, any type of company as well. So the cost is going to also vary from extra small, so it's going to depend on the number of employees the companies have, so we can make it accessible to any type of companies, and to help them out to go through this assessment, because we know that this is really important and can benefit them in long term. And we have been, we also had successful stories from a company, small company with only 25 employees, didn't know how to start this sustainability. They didn't know what they are doing, so EcoVadis helped them to, first of all, diagnose and see the big picture of what they are doing in terms of sustainability now, and how they are going to improve. So they started with a score that was very low, and now through the years we've been accompanying them to grow and to improve their sustainability performance.
Great. So I think we moved from transparency to accessibility. I think all kind of keywords that are really really important. And Eve, I wanna ask you. You mentioned already when we talk about now measuring things, because again, going back to how I started the session of looking for evidence. You mentioned before one of the tools. If you could talk about actually both of them just a bit more with specifics, because I think one is an online tool. I understand that's from a outside provider, and one you're actually building internally in Accor that your teams can use throughout. So it would be great to get a bit of an overview of that.
Yes. So as you might know, Accor did set an SPT for its carbon footprint too. But we do lack a bit of data in terms of interior design. Interior design is a little scope in the whole carbon footprint. So the objective right now is to be able to measure what our interior design concept actually have as an impact on the environment. So we have two tools right now. In parallel of the first tool I was talking about earlier, there is indeed this online tool that calculate the entire environmental and circular footprint of a room design concept. So for example, this year we created 4 new room design concepts for Novotel. And it's a platform where suppliers that were selected for this concept can register all their sustainability data and help us having more information on how to conceive a room concept more sustainably. And how to choose, let's say, the right products. So it's kind of the same objective as I said earlier. There is education objective, and there is gathering data objective, and having all the data we need to make the right choice.
And in terms of if you have already looked at the data, if not, I understand. But what is the early data, preliminary data telling you? Is there anything you've learned already from that? Is there any changes you've been able to implement? Is there something that was surprising? It's just interesting and curious of what's come out of it already.
Well, what is a bit surprising for me is it's really hard actually to get a carbon footprint yet. We have much more data on the circularity of an element, on the environmental footprint per se, but it's quite early apparently in the process for suppliers to have the whole carbon footprint calculated for a product or for their company. We see that there is a big trend on circularity. It's easier and easier to find products that have integrated recycled material and that actually are planned to be recycled in the end. So that's a pretty good sign. It really depends on the different type of product though. It will be obviously very different for lamp or for a carpet, if we talk about Tarkett, for example. And of course, it will be very different if you have carpentry or if you have something in the bathroom. But yes, we already have some results. We already have enough data to be able to go to one supplier or another, or to one product to another, to favor types of conception too. For example, we used to have in hotel rooms a lot of carpentry, a lot of tailor-made elements that when you need to recycle them or give them a second life, it's just impossible because they're just boards of woods. So now we really go towards mobile furniture, for example. Okay. So mobile furniture, it's so much easier to give them a second life in another hotel or elsewhere, actually. And even if you do want to recycle them, then it's easier to dismantle most of the time because you have less material in it. Yeah. So yeah, we're changing the way we're thinking. We hope that we're helping designers to go there too, and especially suppliers to go there too. We all need data.
Yeah, well, that's data is the key word, right? That's what helps you measure things, and what you can measure, you can manage, right? That's how the saying goes. Thank you for that. Actually, I think it's pertinent to now pose the question, and I know you've answered that in the chat, but I think it's important to maybe bring that up in any case. So just for, I'm just going to read that out. When selecting new suppliers, how do you compare, benchmark them around sustainability, CSR topics, and how do you make sure you can compare apples to apples? I think it's a very relevant question, actually.
I think so, indeed, for logistics and transport and logistics company, more than 60, 70, 80, in our case, even 90% is outsourced to third parties. So that makes an immense share of it. What we have is all our suppliers are invited to key in their data. You mentioned it before, transparency. Everyone decides on his own how much he wants to release and provide. So we will be asking a lot of information. And first and foremost is the supplier code of conduct. We want to be sure that you follow international frameworks and policies, labor rights, bribery acts, things like that. You have licenses, you pay your duties, etc. All these. We want to deal with a partner towards our customers we can trust, which is reliable, and he pays his, let's say, duties also to the society, his taxes, etc. And not all of a sudden we see that he doesn't pay even his staff accurately and things like that. That's a very important part. And I think this already gives a complete change. Then we need to know to what specific field would you have competence? Would you like to take transport for pharmaceuticals, or for perishable, for flowers, for vegetables, or just general cargo? Whatever you have. For these, you need particular business licenses. So you upload them, not expired ones, please. That will be followed up. And the more information we have, the more you can score yourself into services. The more higher services you get, of course, there is also higher revenue yield. For both, we can use you, and you get a good share of transportation into that leverage. One thing that I also have to say is we have been doing this for the last 5, 6, 7 years. When we really started, we have a roughly, don't take me for granted, 70, 80,000 plus records, so which is a fair good big source, but that also need to be maintained, number one. Number two, this is a journey. This is not, we kick you out or we will not use you when we don't get all the information. That's not the part. It is a partnership that goes through a journey or goes on a journey to make sure we learn from both each other. We give also information to our suppliers in terms of where could you improve by changing engines into new category. Quite often then people come back, we don't have the money. Good, we can talk about that. Then you get a longer contracting to make sure you also you can buy new let's say category 5, 6 trucks that then also pay off in due course and things like that. It is a partnership that we go into it to make sure we have transparency, because getting knowledge on our suppliers is not against that we squeeze them on the rate or things like that. It is a general information. Are we moving into the right direction? Or do we identify, oh, they are not, let's say, green enough? We should create a forum and awareness training. We did in Europe an awareness training for defensive, part of Europe and Middle East for defensive driving. Why? We had tremendous tragic accidents, speeding at night, delivery to the extent not following the rules, etc. That also goes into health and safety, but it is an overall corporate social responsibility that we have to take care. We want to be you being our driver. We want to make sure you get home to your family at night or once you have done the job safe, and you don't harm anyone on the street while passing by, things like that. And by this, we see also the trends. We need to go into a training session. We need to make them aware of what we expect from there. Or we see we have too many damages in the cargo. Why? Because they were going like Formula One pilots, you know, every curve they on the brakes and things like that has an impact. And this is sort of to understand when you see the big data, when you can cluster them, and then you identify 2 or 3 items where you see in different cultural regions or countries where then you can tackle. And net zero carbon or the CO2 effect is one of many. It is not that we only focus on that. We want to make a global approach to ensure we deliver our goods as promised to the customer, and he can count on us. And this gives us a customer retention. And beside that, if we tell them, listen, we have defensive driver trainings done, which saves us, and we know it by now, between 5 and 8% in costs, because we don't need new brakes, we don't need new tires, etc., or the tire can go for a longer period. All these little things at the end count up and gives a true value to the society again.
Thank you, Jörg. I think that was a really important point to make sure we address that. So thank you so much for posting that question. We do have another question from Sonia, and I think that's one to Eve. But before we move on to that, I do want to kind of focus on, as we're coming towards the end of our session, the management and leadership side of things, because if things don't start from the top, then there's no way they can trickle down to have those sort of ripple effects. And I think Anne-Marie, when we spoke the other week, one sort of pain point that you kind of brought up, and I think that's really important one, is sort of the need for collaboration from different departments that obviously comes from the top, then, of having your HR, your finance, your real estate work together. So if you could expand on that a little bit, that would be great.
Yeah, it's absolutely been something that we've seen start off as a barrier. Obviously, when you're trying to build in, and this goes across sustainability as well, people see building certifications bringing in sustainability outcomes and health and well-being outcomes as a cost, and who's going to bear this cost? That's always the big question, is who's going to be the person that actually has to pick up and pay for this. But what we've really been able to notice in the last 3 years is that the people who benefit from all of these conversations are the human resources, because obviously if you're able to attract and retain talent because you're providing a sustainable and healthy environment, that's a huge plus for them. If you're providing a healthy environment that reduces absenteeism and sick time and health insurance claims, that's a plus for the HR team. And if they can start really validating that savings and really highlighting that for someone in the finance group, they can start to see that everyone's benefiting from the changes that we're trying to do. So let's have a joined up conversation here, because it shouldn't just be corporate responsibility or corporate real estate handling the cost that's going to benefit all these different groups. And it's almost the same with the FM community. I mean, we've seen it before. We design a healthy and sustainable building, and then you drop it off to the FM team to be able to handle and manage that. Why are they not involved in the design of these buildings from the beginning, so that they can end up understanding how best to operate these buildings? And that will be a savings as we go forward as well, because they can learn how to develop and maintain a building that's healthy and sustainable as we move forward, as opposed to just trying to find these changes as they develop. So I've seen really one of the greatest joys for me in my business is to see a customer come back and a client to say, you know, going through a Wellbuilding and in alignment with a LEED or a BREEAM building has brought together so many great independent parts of our team that usually work in silos. And having the ability to bring that team together and see the cross benefit allows everyone to sort of share in the outcome and potentially share in the cost, which is where I think everything becomes much more accessible.
And I think that almost sort of answered the question that Sonia has posed, which I'll read out now. Considering profitability and guest experience are the two most important aspects of a hotel business, is it possible to be successful while also being sustainable and responsible, and to what extent? So I think what you mentioned is you know, if your HR department really focuses on getting a better environment for people, for better retention, less sick days, I mean, that is profitability, right? And that's where things start to move. But I don't know if Eve, you wanna add something more specifically as you deal a lot in the hotel space, obviously.
Well, I would say it's not only possible, it's necessary. The hotel industry, even more than any other industry, actually depends on a healthy society. We can see that more than ever this year with the tourism and what it faces as a crisis. And we rely on a healthy planet. I mean, global warming is a threat for us. Integrating sustainability within our business, within our buildings, and within the guest experience, actually, to embark them in the journey is more than necessary. It will be profitable if we actually anticipate, if we create around it, if we focus the innovation on that sense, if we integrate sustainability within the strategy from the beginning. Yes, I think it can be fully profitable and fully sustainable.
And I was just going to jump in there, Eve, to also say that don't we find, I mean, I'm finding it more on my side when I think of customers being students, residents, employees, they're asking for this. It's not like we're trying to tell them they need to be in a healthy building. We're seeing absolute demand and coming from the end user. And I would imagine in the hospitality business, you're probably seeing the same.
Yeah, and it's coming quite quickly, actually. You know, 2 years ago, everyone wanted a plastic bottle of water in the room. Now they absolutely reject it, and the change came very quickly. And I think it's coming for the carbon. For in 1 or 2 years, it will come for the biodiversity. They are subject that actually matters to our guests and to our owners and to all our stakeholders, actually. So yes, it's coming. The demand is there. Definitely.
And I think that goes back to the changing customer needs and what is it that the end user wants and how that needs to be positioned, actually. And as we're kind of coming to the end, one last sort of question I want to pose, mostly first of all to Diana and Jörg is Diana, you work in the CEE region, UK and France. So you see a lot of geographical differences, and we're not going to go into the sort of legislation on the government level, because that's like a whole other session. But like I said, things come from the top, and there needs to be that sort of commitment. And I know you had a viewpoint on the different geographies, and Jörg obviously would like to get your views on that as well, having a global company that deals in so many different cultures and regions. But Diana, if you could go first.
Yes, thank you for, it's a great question again. So yeah, I've been dealing with, I've been onboarding customers from both from the European markets, but from the Eastern European and also from the Western European market. So there is a huge gap. We can say that there is a huge gap in terms of maturity for on the sustainability topic. So from the Western countries, we have been seeing that there were a lot of legislation that were emerging, like duty of care, like Modern Slavery Act, and many others. And the companies are actually they need to be compliant to this legislation in order to run the business. And of course, the companies use it as a communication tool as well to their suppliers in order to onboard them and to make them to realize them that this is not only to be compliant, but it needs to go beyond the compliancy. And of course, the companies from this side, from the Western side and the market, they are adopting this sustainability assessment as something more like natural. They are aware of what is it and what is the importance on it. And of course, if we move to more to the West, I don't want to make a division, but this is the reality. So I think there is less awareness, first of all, about the importance of sustainabilities for a business, for the companies. And also there is, I feel like there is less awareness, but also less commitment from their side, because as the legislation does not many times apply to this side, to these countries, they wouldn't be compliant. They wouldn't actually care about what are the legislation that are imposed in the other countries, in the Western countries. So many times there would be a reluctancy from their side. It would be for them just enough to be compliant to the local legislation, but not to the international one. So again, going back to leadership and educating, so EcoVadis also have noticed that when the leadership, for example, the program manager of a requesting company and its buyers, they are more committed, and they are fully aware of sustainabilities, and they are aligned with their sustainability objectives, they are also be more motivated to embark all their suppliers into this journey, and to come along and to go along this journey together. So definitely it's a common effort, and definitely there comes, and it should come, the communication and the awareness and the education from the leadership, and this will be disseminated to all levels. So
thank you,
great
Diana.
question for that.
Thank you. And you have 1.5 minutes to wrap up. What are the sort of differences that you see within Kühne and Nagel when we look at geographies and the commitment levels?
Well, first of all, to get we have 5 regions. As said, we have 80,000 employees, and we have a trillion of great ideas. What is important is to get a buy-in by the management, to make sure the board of directors also supports that. And it was a little bit the bottom-up, top-down approach that we raised that a couple of years ago, which direction we had strategy definitions, looked on what is sort of on the horizon, new trends, technologies, how can we combine it smartly. And then this is basically what, among many others, also came out, that we definitely have to move on. And then, yeah, we created that. And now what we have to make sure is that it is a top-down approach by motivating the people. And what we also do is we have it in the targets of the sales, of the operations, of the management, of the regional CEOs, that we want to focus a certain amount on their time for CO2, corporate social responsibility, sustainability strategies. And they all at a sudden see that customers do accept, customers are willing, customers are asking, and now they are motivated, and this is a great interaction.
Well, thank you so much for that, Jürgen, and actually quite nicely summing up of we started from the employee side and we made it now all the way to the management and really kind of getting the message through that we need the buy-in from the top, and that's where change actually happens. So with that, I would like to thank all my panelists. It's been wonderful having you, and also thanking Tarkett for inviting me and giving us all a chance to discuss sort of a heavy but incredibly important topic besides our imaginary fire. So the recording will be shared with all of you after the session ends. So please share it with your teams and let us know if you have any questions or comments. And do stay tuned for our announcements as the fire is only just getting started. So thank you from me. I'm Hilary Rand. Thank you and have a great St. Patrick's Day.
Perfect.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you for
Thank you.
inviting. Have a
Bye.
great one.
Bye-bye.